Okay, so today we're going to talk about the S21 Fan Edition. And the place it actually holds in the current year, that's 2022. Because yes, the name S21 starts to feel a little bit outdated, especially since Samsung just recently launched their new line, the S22. So let's talk about what this phone has and is it worth buying in 2022? Let's begin by addressing the elephant in the room, and that is that the S21 Fan Edition is actually the equivalent to Apple's iPhone SE. We have 1-year-old flagship specs by cutting down a couple of corners. And what corners may those be? Well, let's talk about the specs and I'll let you know. Beginning by the screen, we have a beautiful panel by Samsung that's actually 120 Hz with Super AMOLED technology. It's perfect, beautiful, and definitely a flagship panel. We also have a last year Snapdragon 88, also flagship, no cutting corners there. We can also have 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. You can choose either option. But then we have an under-screen fingerprint reader. This is actually an optical fingerprint reader. It's not a supersonic fingerprint reader like the ones we can find in the other Ultra versions. But does this mean you're actually gonna get a worse experience with this optical fingerprint reader? Not really. Most people won't even notice it. It's pretty fast, pretty snappy, and works quite well. And all of this is actually powered by an upgrade, and you might think, what? An upgrade on a washed down S21? Yes, this Fan Edition actually has a 4500 milliamp battery. The S21 regular version actually only has 4000 milliamps. So yes, an upgrade and better battery life. Now let's talk about the build quality, and this is definitely where Samsung cut more corners. The rear of the phone is completely plastic. We don't have any type of Gorilla Glass. We don't have any type of metal. Everything is just solid, pure, matte plastic. It's actually not fully matte because it does pick up a couple of fingerprints, but it's not bad. The only part of this phone that's actually metal is the frame. So the build quality actually makes this phone pretty light. It's only 175 grams, which is very light. The first time I held it in my hand, I thought it was like a dummy phone. It doesn't even feel real before you turn it on. So very light in case you're into that. Okay, now cameras. In the rear we have 3 sensors. The main one is 12 megapixels, the ultra wide is also 12 megapixels, and the telescope is only 8 megapixels. This is also where Samsung cut a couple of corners because the S21 regular edition has actually 64 megapixels. Will most people actually notice a difference? I really would say not. Most of us don't even use the telephoto. And if you do, maybe this phone is not for you, but I think at least maybe 7 out of 10 people won't even care about that telephoto. Okay, so all these specs are actually pretty familiar because there's really not a lot of difference between the S21 regular version and this S21 Fan Edition. So is it worth buying in 2022? Well, I would say definitely if the price was right, because right now you can find this phone for about $600 in Amazon. But the problem is you can actually find the regular S21 without cutting any corners practically at the same price or sometimes even cheaper, which is actually pretty weird. So it's actually pretty hard to recommend this phone. And I think Samsung is actually gonna have quite a hard time selling this phone. So if you're in the market for S21 Fan Edition, I actually recommend you check first if you can find an S21 regular version. The only thing that's an upgrade in this phone compared to the regular version is that 4500 milliamp battery, which I really don't think makes a lot of difference. So I would go for the S21 regular version. Although, if Samsung drops the price on this phone, which is actually what I think is going to happen in the near future, this phone might actually be a better bang for the buck, but it all depends on the pricing. Okay, well that's the S21 Fan Edition for you. A great phone, but with the wrong pricing. I hope you liked the video and also found it useful. If that's the case, maybe consider subscribing right over here. Also, smash that like button, and I'll see you in the next video.